Hey, ladies and gentlemen, it's Macabre Derek with another RPG rant. Let the rambling begin. I want to end up discussing today picking up the pieces. When your players die, your campaign goes flat on its face, bad thing happens, cockatrice ends up deciding to wipe out the entire party, or somebody decided to end up breaching the masquerade in such a way that every party involved is basically put on the death list and they flee. They flee for their lives. Okay, what do you do? Well, the first thing is that if I can offer one piece of advice, feel that disappointment. I know it sounds weird, but believe it or not, a lot of us STs, a lot of us GMs are not actively trying to kill you. You, the players. We're not trying to. It doesn't suit us. If we're killing off the players every second session, well, eventually they just stop caring about their characters and stop acting in ways that are rational, because if I'm going to die in either way, I might as well end up going out with a bang. And if I'm going to have to re-roll characters every 2 seconds, why should I bother end up putting more thought into them other than where their stats go and what funky accent I'll end up using? Unfortunately, sometimes these situations happen. Now, maybe I'm alone on this, and there's a very good chance of it. But the way I keep describing my games is that I am simply the world reacting to the best logic I understand of these characters, these NPCs. I know I've written them, but sometimes characters can take on a life of their own. So, if the world's just reacting to you, and you do something horrific enough to get you killed, well, the hardest part to accept is that those characters, their story is over. May not have ended the way you wanted to. They may not have found all those mysteries that you laid out. You had this really interesting hook or this really good twist that was just around the bend, but god dang it, the players just bit it. Feel that disappointment. Don't beat yourself down for it. Don't sorry. Don't get at you, but it's okay to feel that little bit of disappointment. You put a lot of time, a lot of effort into these characters. You put a lot of time into the world. They put a lot of time investing, coming into play in this world. They're fascinated by it. They honor you by coming back for another session. You should really end up taking advantage of that. And now, it sounds over. Situation seems hopeless, almost as hopeless as it was for the characters in the game. Now it's all over. One of the things I ended up learning, though, is that while the characters may be dead, the setting is not. The setting will continue on and probably changed irreparably because of the way the characters went out. Consider this for a minute. How cool is it if you've been playing in the same world and you've run 3 or 4 characters that you run back into an old NPC as a new character and they start saying about this previous character and how much they owe them the money, or how awesome it was when they were rescued, or what kind of a monster were they? Throwbacks. Show the players that their characters mattered. And the way you do that is by bringing them back in reference, in discussion. Make it a point that these characters are remembered. They have left a mark upon the world and have changed something dramatically. Their failure has led to a whole new situation. And that new situation is what these new characters need to come in and deal with. So in fact, now the players end up feeling like the situation is not a setting that was built to screw them. It feels like a direct result of their own actions. And now all of a sudden, they realize just how much they mattered. And let them know that this is specifically because these characters couldn't get the job done. And because of that, maybe the warlord did, in fact, manage to invade the good king's country. Maybe, just maybe, the Sabbat infiltration has managed to take hold in the court. Maybe the Black Crusade was halted, and now all the remnants of what could have been a great fleet are cast about in the Jericho sector again. Let them come back. Let them realize it. Make sure that some of the NPCs are changed because of this. Some of them had stock in the player characters. Some of them wanted them dead. The ones that were helpful, let them mourn. Show that they're in mourning. Show that these characters mattered. To their enemies, take it as a great victory. Make it a point. Now, don't beat them over the head with it, but let them come back. Every 2 or 3 sessions, maybe they'll run into something until they get their feet with their new characters. Because now all of a sudden, they're in a world that they realize they help make. Now, when it comes down to the players, I'm kind of a sentimental guy. I actually give a shit about my players. I want them to be okay, and some of them, I will admit, end up getting a little too attached to their characters. I know I do. I don't want to see my characters die. I don't want to see, it end in a miserable fate. I try not to let that happen. More often than not, it doesn't. But on occasion, if you're not being strict to a certain degree, if they think they can get away with everything, well, why do they have any reason to be invested when suddenly things go really south for them? Unless that element of danger shows itself. Now, the other bit I want to end up discussing is when you recreate your setting, or I shouldn't even say recreate, I would say modify, because it still is the same world, isn't it? It's the same world that you've been playing for 5-10 years, maybe longer. Maybe you just cooked it up during a summer break and you've been running it ever since. Either way, just because the players died does not mean you have to end up starting a whole new world from scratch. That's part of building a world. That's one of the fascinating parts about world building, is that you can watch it grow and develop. And its development oftentimes is impacted by players that have come before. In my setting of Winnipeg, I have had no less than 7 groups go through it. 7 different coteries. 7 different groups of players. Actually more. But each and every one of them has left a mark on that city, and that city is very much a result of what those players have done. Many of those players don't even know the others, so they're unaware that a drug deal that went bad 10 years ago suddenly ended up turning this section of the city into almost a gangster war zone, because that's been spiraling out of control since the players have no longer been there to stop it. They don't know that because of their inability to end up figuring out where the drug trade has been pushed, that there's suddenly this thing on the market that's killing people. They don't know that because of their character dying, that a bit of domain has suddenly been nitpicked by all those vying for a little bit more power. Meanwhile, an entire clan may have lost it. And this is just in my vampire setting. I can tell you far more stories that end up coming out from my own rendition of Dungeons and Dragons referred to as Ash World. Because these games are persistent, because the choices matter and detail the setting, you can have several plots that are running in the background that are almost written because of the players. And because that's happening, they know you're keeping them in mind. It shows you care. And the more you show that you care about your game and the players in it, the more they're going to want to come back, and they're going to go, you want to know what? Yeah. The last situation sucked that the characters had to die. But you know what? What we have now couldn't have happened if those characters didn't die. What we have is unique because it's no longer a world crafted for us to explore, but a world that is a direct result of our choices. And quite frankly, what's more special than that? Than knowing that you made a difference in an entire world, even if it's a small one. If you ended up finding this video at all helpful, feel free to end up pressing the like button. If you enjoy these RPG rants and other videos to come, feel free to hit the subscribe button. If there's any topic you want to end up seeing me tackle, feel free to end up leaving a comment down below. I keep reading them from time to time. I'd like to keep in contact. So, until next time.